All right, are you ready to get started? It's recorded, so we'll post this afterwards as well too for people. But for everyone that's here so far, thanks for joining us. This is our monthly Getting Started with Port webinar. So whether you're just discovering Port or you've already been exploring, we're really glad you're here. If you would like to post in the chat, let us know your name, where you're joining from, and kind of what brought you here today and what you're hoping to learn. That helps us build this webinar as we keep moving forward. Today's session is all about helping you hit the ground running with ports, and we'll cover some basics. And leading our session is Antara. She is based in Austin. She's on our solutions team here at Port. She works closely with teams to get their portals up and running, bringing visibility and structure to their developer experience. And we're excited that she's going to be able to share some best practices, answer questions today. So we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. So you can keep questions in chat or let us know at the end. But yeah, up to you, Antara.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bree. And then also just quick note before we get started for you, Bree, like if you can just keep an eye on that attendees list and make sure people can unmute. But yeah, thanks so much. So yeah, like Bree said, my name is Antara. I am based out of Austin. We'll actually jump into like formal intros in a second. I want to give a chance to Gus to introduce himself as well, but feel free to kind of pop in the chat if you can. Like Bree said, just your name and where you're joining us from, what company you're with. And then as I go through these couple just intro slides here, if you would also like to just give us one quick sentence about maybe what brought you to Port or what you're most interested in seeing. Yeah, so let me just share my screen and we can kind of officially get this kicked off. All right. And just give me a quick second to kind of adjust all my windows.
Hey, real quick, while you're adjusting, the chat has been disabled. So I don't know if it's disabled for everyone, but
Okay, thank you for that, Bree. Do you want to?
Yeah, let me see if I can undisable it. Sorry, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, while Kelly works on that, and definitely let us know if once you're able to see that chat functionality. But yeah, like I said, or like Bree said, today is just going to be like a very informal introduction of Port. We'll start off just introducing myself and Gus, and then talk a little bit about IDPs in general. We'll do like a quick what your first 5 minutes into Port looks like, just like the initial setup. And we'll do a demo of a more mature implementation of Port. Talk a little bit about Engineering 360, which is our most recent launch. And then we'll talk about where you can kind of focus when you were beginning your journey with Port and then end with Q&A. You always like feel free to hop in while I'm presenting and just come off mute and ask a question, but also you can pop it in the chat. Hopefully, Bree, you have that working now. But yeah, so just a little quick intro for me. My name is Antara. As Bree said, I'm a solutions engineer here at Port. I come from the observability space, so I was at New Relic and Elastic prior to this, and then in a past life, I was at Accenture consulting as a DevOps engineer. And I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I'm going to hand it over to Gus to do a quick intro.
Yeah, so thank you, Antara. So I'm Gus. I am also a solution engineer on Antara's team, lucky enough to be on Antara's team. I'm based out of London. As we were just chatting about, I was previously at GitHub, who love Port, which is how I ended up coming here because it's such an exciting and cool product. And I played soccer because I think we've got a few Americans on the course. So soccer for England amateurs was my fun fact outside of work. So great to meet all of you. So I'll be answering any questions you have in the back channel and supporting Antara. So great to meet all of you.
Thanks so much, Gus. So yeah, as I said, I think the chat feature is working now. So please feel free to put any questions in there. We'll definitely pause and address those as we go along. All right, so let's jump in and talk a little bit about IDPs or internal developer portals. So if you're here, you probably have some kind of platform in place, like some kind of mix of tools and technologies that you've put together to help your developers kind of build and ship what your end customers are using. So the people that interact with that platform, your stakeholders can range from developers all the way up to the CISO. So everyone is bringing in their different needs and looking at things from different angles. So the goal of an IDP is to bring all of that together. So kind of one place where all your tools, all your people, regardless of their roles, can connect. It's kind of that common ground where everything meets, right? Your tech, your teams, your workflows, everything is kind of coming together there. So the core of platform engineering, right? Your IDP should bring a few key things together. Most importantly, all of your architecture and all your tools in one place. And it should reflect your data model the way that you understand it. So at Port, we're very kind of unopinionated in how we approach IDPs. The idea is that your platform should make sense to your engineering organization and kind of be built in your team's DNA. And it also needs to offer different views tailored to those different stakeholders, right? So sure, it's called a developer portal, but there are more people who care, right? More people who are curious, who have needs, who want visibility. So you should also think about the unique workflows that each of those people need, whether it's a developer trying to get a feature into production, or an infrastructure, DevOps or DevSecOps team simply trying to, simplify access to cloud resources. Maybe you're an SRE who wants to respond to incidents more efficiently, lowering MTTR, or even just starting to track more advanced metrics across the full incident lifecycle, not just mean time to mitigate. And then from a leadership perspective, right, it could be about tracking productivity or helping developers stay aligned with the standards that make sense for your organization. So your internal developer portal should kind of support all of that. So later we'll kind of dive into what you can build first. You'll see an example of how to get started, and then also a more mature version of what a fully built out portal can look like within Port. Definitely don't worry if the mature version feels like a lot. It's kind of meant to show the art of the possible, maybe like a couple years down the line. So before we get into all of that, I do want to just quickly cover the 4 core pillars of Port's customization, plus a few key foundational elements. So first up here, we have the software catalog. And we say software catalog, not just service catalog, because it should really include everything. So that means your microservices and monoliths, sure, but also any cloud resources, vulnerabilities, incidents, basically anything that makes up your software landscape. So it's kind of a one-stop view of everything that matters to you. Then there are scorecards. So we don't enforce a strict definition of what it means to be production ready, and that's intentional. So after talking to a lot of teams, we've learned that it means different things to different people. So in Port, you get the flexibility to define and build your own standards, and you decide what matters most to your organization. Next up, we have self-service. So the goal here is to make sure that developers can access what they need when they need it without filing a ticket. So one click and they're good to go. But again, it's fully customizable. So we don't dictate the workflows. You design them to fit your team's needs. And then finally, we have workflow automations. So there's always tasks where you'd rather kind of remove the human from the loop. So think about like ephemeral environments or responding to incidents. With Port, you can trigger things automatically. So for example, spinning up a Slack or a Teams channel with the right people and context in place as soon as an incident occurs. And kind of beneath all of that, we have 2 critical building blocks. So the first is role-based access control here on the bottom. So that just helps you control who can view what, but also more importantly, even who can do what. So it's highly granular. You can set up permissions, not just by role, but also by action, approval rights, and more. And it's really designed to account for the full scope of a person's responsibilities. And then last on top, we have dashboards. So you want different people to see different things that matter the most to them. So with Port, you can build custom dashboards for every stakeholder, whether it's a CISO, a VP of engineering, or a team lead. We don't assume what they want to see because every organization is different. But with everything in one place, they can get a view that's tailored just for them. I just want to take a quick pause here before we jump into the live demo. Any questions or anything that kind of stands out to you, or you think from these kind of 4 pillars that we discussed, anything that you think would be the most important for your organization? And feel free to pop it in the chat as well. If you don't want to come off mute, that's totally fine. All right, if not, let's jump into the demo. So I'll start by walking through our new onboarding experience. It's not too new. It has been up for a few months now, but if you've visited Port prior to that, maybe like early on in this year or before that, some of this might look a little bit different, and I'll make sure to go through and like point out those differences. But so today, if you go and sign up for Port, you'll kind of start off by answering a couple questions. Also, if you're able to right now, and if you'd like, you can follow along. You'll just head over to the Port homepage. Actually, Gus, it might be nice if you could drop that link in there and hit sign up, and you'll be taken through the same kind of onboarding experience that I'm walking through right now. So then we're going to give it an organization name. I'm just going to say webinar. Choose kind of whatever makes sense for you. You can add your team members here and assign them a different role, and we'll kind of talk about how you can customize those roles. But for now, it's just pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and skip this step. And then you're going to select your Git provider. So this part hasn't changed much. For this, I'm just going to go ahead and click GitHub and then skip this step for now. But this is where you would kind of walk through setting up those permissions so that Port can access your GitHub. So this is where things start to look maybe a little bit different if you have seen that older version of Port. So at the very beginning, we want to understand which tools your organization uses. So you'll see all these different options. I'm just going to select GitHub for source control, Jira for project management, Snyk maybe for security scanning, PagerDuty for incident management, and then I'll go ahead and do SonarQube for code quality, and let's do GCP for my resources. So selected all of those. Don't worry, Port is not going to it's not asking me to configure anything yet or do any integrations immediately. What we're just doing is going to create a checklist for you so you can come back for those configuration and integration steps when you're ready. So it's going to take a couple minutes right now just to set up that initial portal, and then we'll be able to see kind of what is available immediately out of the box. So again, if you want to kind of follow along and do this on your own, you can do that. All right. So again, if you've used Port before, you might remember that the homepage had some sample data, and you might have created some catalog pages or some blueprints by yourself. We've actually changed that up a little bit. So when you create the portal, Port will automatically build out some of these pre-configured pages for you. And we'll walk through the steps to get your own service catalog. So I will demo part of that today, but not fully in depth. So as you can see, the portal already has some nicely organized catalog pages here, right? We have our services, workloads, environments. I'm going to pop open users and teams. So here you can set up SSO and set up your different teams and the different groupings. There's also a Plan My Day view, more geared towards developers. Then there's also a Manage My Team's Work. This is more geared towards leadership. And then also like a Manage Incidents view, among others. So maybe more geared for an SRE team. So what's shown, as you can see, a lot of this remote, that's all empty. So what is shown will dynamically adapt based on those tools that you selected earlier when we were doing that setup. So speaking of that, up here, I can actually see that list. I can look at my onboarding checklist. So these are the tools that I selected. Let's say, for example, I want to connect Sneak. You have two options here, port hosted integration, which is kind of the default. So there you would just drop in your API token. Then there's also the self-hosted option. So this is more geared for people who want to be a little bit more security conscious. This is kind of our original push-based model. So you just follow those steps and you will be good to go. So once all of that is in place, you can start building things. So if I head over here to self-service, I can do things like register a user. I can even start owning services. So let's just open this up. So let that load. We have an example team here, and then you can select from the list of available services, and this will all be more populated once I start ingesting some more data. So you see kind of all these out of the box self-service actions, like for example, ignoring a Sneak issue. That's popping up here because I selected Sneak as one of the tools that I wanted to connect to port. So previously, this might have been a little bit more tightly controlled, right? Developers weren't able to kind of do it themselves, but with port, developers can, using this self-service action, kind of select a vulnerability, choose a reason type, and then submit it directly for approval from port. And so this is interacting directly with the Sneak API. So let's actually just open this up and take a look at the back end. So basically under the hood, a port is placing an API request to the Sneak API and sending this information with your input that the user is putting in through this user form directly to the Sneak API. So we do the same thing with PagerDuty, letting you acknowledge or trigger incidents straight from the portal. I think we have, this trigger incident self-service action right here, and then similarly the acknowledge incident one. And remember, all of these flows work out of the box based on the tools that you selected during onboarding. So very easy to get started, right? You build your catalog, register some users. Your service catalog may have a lot of repos, so you kind of can decide who owns what and what is connected to other things. So that's kind of how you get started. I highly, highly encourage everyone to go try it out. Any questions so far, or was anyone kind of able to follow along? I know I kind of went through that a little bit quickly. All right, cool. So let's move into a quick demo of a more mature implementation of the portal. So again, I'm gonna pull it up here. This is a representation of a kind of a highly mature implementation, right? Maybe something to work towards over a few years even. I'll be using the public demo environment today, which actually, Gus, if you could drop the public demo link in the chat. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to play around, to follow along with it with me right now as I go through it. You can also always play around with it later if you'd like. It's always available. And just always keep in mind that this is a super, super mature implementation, and this is not kind of an expectation for customers right out of the gate. So we're going to start off here in catalog. Once you've connected all of your tools, something that you can do automatically with minimal manual setup, which like we discussed earlier, Port gives you this unified software catalog. So this is going to be kind of a central view of everything that matters across your entire platform. Like we showed earlier, right, developers often juggle, anywhere from 12 to 15 tabs. They're jumping between tools to plan their workday, respond to issues, and just maintain overall context. So what Port is doing here is bringing all of that into a single view. So if we open up one of these services, let's take a look at the authentication service, for example. I can see everything about it immediately, including all these related entities, right? So I can see any workloads, pull requests, my Jira issues, PagerDuty incidents, my SonarQube issues, anything going on with the cloud, like which cloud resources are related, my Dependabot alerts, right? Everything is everything that you want to include in your catalog, it's all right here. So let's talk a little bit about why this is effective, right? So let's take a look at these services under the developer persona. So let's say I'm a new developer to a company. When I log in, I'm brought straight to the services that I'm working on, right? There's no need to chase down links or ping someone for access. And that's time saved for my mentors and my managers as well, right? They're not having to answer those questions. So for example, maybe I know that my team works on the order service. I can open that up. I can check if it's actually, deployed or if it's still experimental. Turns out that it is pretty active. So let's head over here to related entities. We've got our Dependabot alerts. Let's see if we can find some vulnerability scans here. We got our Sneak project. We have some feature flags. I can also see the documentation in my README right here, kind of just telling me how the service works. I can also access the API specs, dashboards. So here I can see deployment frequency, MTTR. So just right out of the gate as a new developer, I'm kind of quickly able to understand how to contribute and be helpful, even just in my first few days. Quick pause here. We're going to jump into another topic. So any questions about this? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about getting things done, like shipping a new feature. So again, let's say you're a new developer, you've been working on a feature that you might want to ship to production, but before you push it out, you want to test it out in a lower environment. So in many organizations, a new developer might need to follow a long checklist to complete that. Right, you might need to create a ticket first and then request access and then get pipeline permissions and retrieve API keys. So it's slow, you start to lose context, you're waiting around. But what happens with Port self-service is that the experience is way smoother. So let's say that as a new developer, I've kind of familiarized myself with order service. I know who to talk to, who is maybe who the owning team is, who the last committer was, and now I want to test out a fix in my developer environment. So I'm going to click on my lightning bolt here. I don't know if you saw, but it's basically a list of self-service actions that are available on top of the service. So these are my day 2 actions. I'm going to head over to deploy an image. And let's go ahead and select an image. This is going to be order. Let's say I have this hotfix that I've been working on. I can choose my environment. I want to deploy it to the staging environment. I'm going to hit execute. And let's see, I'll just reload the page and see if it works. But basically, I'm able to deploy, do my deployment right here from this page. Let's try this again. Okay, I think I might have just mistyped something. But I get my instant feedback, right? It's in staging. There are no tickets, no manual approvals, no waiting. So a good rule that I've seen is that kind of good rule of thumb is that if there is something that can be some process that can be boiled down to a checklist, it can be turned into a self-service action within Port. So that can be anything, and I'll give you a quick preview here of some examples. Can be anything like creating a PagerDuty service, creating an S3 bucket, which we'll actually talk about in just a second here, but just tons and tons of examples. And again, all of this is customizable to the workflows that already exist in your organization. So these are just some examples that we've come up with in our demo environment. So let's talk a little bit about creating an S3 bucket or just provisioning resources in general. So let's say that I've been here a couple of weeks as a new developer and I'm working on maybe the pricing service. So let's head back to our catalog here and find our pricing service. There it is. Now, again, I've been here for a couple of weeks, so I know how to deploy something into an environment. but I need an S3 bucket for something. Maybe I need a currency conversion and I need a little bit of data in that bucket. So I could maybe open up a ticket and wait for someone to address it, but that's again a very slow, painful process. So instead, then I can just open up a PR right here for creating my S3 bucket. Let's say, as an example, that the infrastructure code and the source code live in the same repo. So I just want to create a new bucket. I'm going to call it, let's do a copy and paste here. I'm just going to call it currency conversion bucket. And then I'm going to make it, let's go through our options here, either public or private. So basically with RBAC, we can configure this. If the developer selects public, the request needs approval. If it's private, then it can kind of proceed automatically. So you can skip RBAC entirely here, just dependent on how you configure this self-service action, and just have it sent directly to a deployment pipeline if you would like. But this is just the way that we have it set up. Hopefully this one works. Looks like there might be something going on in our demo environment today. But this is just, again, an example of what you can do, right? Getting immediate access to resources. And I'll just pop up one of our previous runs open so you can see what it looks like. In the back end, you would have like a log stream here, just kind of showing the log of the self-service action within Port. All right, let's take a look at just one more self-service action here. And I'm spending a lot of time on this because this is typically something that our customers find extremely useful and again, very customizable. So they're able to set up whatever self-service action they need based on their workflows. So we're gonna do the create a new dev environment. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Then you can also always, if you have a lot of self-service actions like I do here in this demo environment, you can always just search for them up there as well. But I'm going to go ahead and create this. And we'll just say services dev environment. Owning team, choose a team here, and this is all synced to the service catalog. So as we kind of discussed previously, you can pull in all your different teams and users using SSO. So in the self-service hub, it already knows what teams you have based on what's in the service catalog. And then I want to do time to live to 1 day. I want this environment to only last for a day. And then I'm going to do my currency service. I want my order service as well, and then pricing. Not going to click execute because I think there's something going on with that. But the point is that I can create this instantly, right? No one had to file a ticket. I get immediate feedback. Let's actually just see. Yeah, something's going on, but I would get that immediate feedback based on the progress that the self-service action is making within Port. So now let's actually go ahead and look at my catalog and look at my developer environments again. So let me just find that. All right, so these are all my different developer environments. So we set our time to live on that environment we just created to 1 day. So if it's in here, right, whose responsibility is it to shut down that environment? Is it mine as the developer? Is it DevSecOps? Is it my manager? Right, with no one knows. So with Port automations, that's covered. You can trigger cleanup actions based on any property, like for example, this timer property, or there are several other examples as well. So let's actually head over to our main automations page and I'll show you a couple of those. So several examples, again, the time to live expiry. So when it expires or maybe just gets to a certain level, we can automatically terminate that ephemeral environment. And I'll show you what the backend looks like as well. So super customizable, you have full access to the catalog. So you can also trigger it based on entity creation or update, any manual property change. Yeah, very, very customizable here. And then you can either automatically remove the environment or even send a Slack or Teams message reminding the developer. So many examples here. Really, you can set up whatever custom automations you can think of based on, like I said, properties changing, entities being created, etc. So really, whatever you can think of pretty much can be accomplished via automations. All right, let's move on to scorecards and Dora metrics. So we're going to open up another service here. We'll actually go back to the authentication service. So you might currently have some kind of company-wide Dora aggregator, but not all services need the same standards, right? So some services may be dragging the overall average down or might not be tracked correctly. So that customization can be kind of tracked via Port's scorecards. Well, let's open this up here. You can kind of view Dora metrics per service, and I'll show that in a second here, but you can also see lead time, deployment frequency, right? MTTR, give the teams visibility into how their services are performing, and then also even reward teams that are consistently meeting or exceeding thresholds. So for example, if I own this service, I can see right now how a slight improvement in lead time would actually push me into a higher performance tier. And that's just at the service level. So for leadership, for example, let's see if I can find a good page to show. Let's look at SVP of engineering and Dora metrics. So leadership here can view what are the results of the changes that maybe they've made, right? They can see here things like average deployment frequency or frequency over time, MTTR monthly average, mean lead time for changes. They can also actually see the breakdown of Dora metrics by team. And then let's look at scorecard overview here. So here they can see some more like macro teams trends across services and teams, maybe identifying bottlenecks and launch initiatives. So for example, here, the blue just kind of indicates that Dora metrics are pretty low across the board for all of my different teams. So we can actually even create an initiative based on that, right from within the service catalog. So I'm just going to search for initiative here and pop one of these open. So here as an example, we can say that every service should require a domain and map to PagerDuty to reduce that overall MTTR. So you can actually improve upon the things that you're measuring from within Port. And then one more thing before we start to wrap up here is so a lot of folks are now using tools like AI tools like GitHub Copilot to help in their day-to-day. So in our public demo here, we've added insights on how those tools actually affect engineering performance. So let's say you've maybe rolled out Copilot to like 500 engineers, you probably hear positive feedback, but what about actual objective data? Right. So with Port, you can kind of pull usage metrics from the GitHub API. You can track active users. You can analyze code completion acceptance rates. So are people actually accepting the code that Copilot is offering? And also monitor quality here. So monitor bug density and Dora metrics over time. And then you can even calculate the time savings by comparing historical feature delivery speed pre and post Copilot. All right, so we're going to talk about Engineering 360, but before we do that, any questions on anything that we've seen so far? Anything in the chat also, Gus?
There was one question, Antara, from Brandon around how Port ingests data. So I think talking about our exporters, and I'll put one of the docs around this in the chat. But do you want to talk a little bit about that, or would you like me to? I can.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let me just share my screen very quickly.
Yeah.
So, one second, just get this up.
Doc sharing, or you can also just send me the doc, or if it's in the chat, I can pull it up either. Okay.
So hopefully you can see this. Okay. So Brandon, this is the same demo portal you can see here, and what we can do is if we go to the builder page, we can see our data sources. So where Brandon, for context for everybody, Brandon's question was, how do we get data from all of our different tools, whether that's GitHub, GitLab, you name it, how do we bring it in? So what we can do is we can add a data source here, whether that's GitHub, Bitbucket, Argo CD, Azure, AWS, all of these different tools. And then we have different exporters. So we can provide you with exporters, or if you're on-prem and you want to run your own ones, we can give you kind of Helm charts, for example, and in real time, that we'll be able to ingest your resources, the metadata of your resources to port. And then what we can do is start to build relationships between, imagine your GitHub repository or a service and all of their cloud resources, for example. So when we can do that in real time. So it's very easy to set these up. And it's kind of up to you how you do that, but we provide you with these, and anything that we don't have inside of Port, potentially you're using a third-party tool that you don't see in this kind of pretty long list. Then we've got a tool called Ocean, where it can essentially, again, in real time, we'll be able to ingest. As long as there's an API, as long as there's an endpoint there, we'll be able to ingest it. So that was Brandon's question around how we ingest things. And then we can, as I said, the real power of Port is then being able to relate all these different entities from one to another. So relating my, for example, Antara showed earlier, but let's, if we look at a service, for example, the authentication service, I can see all of its related entities. Oh, it's being a bit sketchy, this. There we go. You can see all of the related workloads, pull requests, deployments, Jira issues, PagerDuty incidents, dependencies, SonarQube issues. So you name it, you can relate it to that service. So that's the beauty of it. So Port will meet you where you are, as Antara said. It will, whatever, every company's different, every organization's different, and we can match that, which is the power of it. And then you can run certain actions, and depending on who the user is, what your company looks like, and how you want to do it. So it's extremely powerful. So Brandon, hopefully that answers your question in the chat, and thanks for raising that.
There's also, it looks like Stephen posted another question in the chat, not the Q&A, if you see that.
Amazing. Just have a look.
Find an example use case for creating a custom integration with the Ocean framework.
So basically the use case would be if we don't cover it in one of these kind of the kind of known data sources. If it's not in our documentation, we do have a guide for it. If it's something you use just in your company, would be a usual example, then the Ocean framework is what you want to use. So basically just to make, so the idea of it is anything you have, we'll be able to ingest it and do that in real time. So that's where the Ocean framework comes in. So rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time, you can use our framework and then just use that with whatever your integration you want to bring into Port. We can share that I'll share that in the chat with you. I'll share some docs on that.
All right, I hope that kind of answers your questions, Brandon and Stephen, and thanks for thanks for asking. Those are both very important topics to cover, so thank you, Gus. All right, so just a couple more things I want to cover here before we can just open it up for a more general Q&A. What we have are, like I said, actually, I think it was released 2 days ago, the Port Engineering 360 launch. So it's really just about taking what we're already able to do with helping engineering organizations and just taking that one step further. So we want you to be able to gather insights, prioritize efforts, and turn feedback into visible outcomes. So with this launch, you can now kind of survey your engineering, operations, security, and other teams to surface any frustrations and back up that sentiment with quantitative metrics using frameworks like DORA. So once blockers are identified, Port provides the automation and streamlined workflows to resolve them, measure and celebrate wins, and kind of just build a culture of continuous improvement. So it's not just about improving visibility, it's about increasing velocity. So currently, your developers often may have requests for their management, but they might get lost in docs, emails, Slack messages, spreadsheets. In fact, if you want to pop in the chat or come off mute and just kind of share what your experience is with feedback in general, you're absolutely welcome to do so. We'd love to kind of hear what the process is like currently for our customers or prospective customers, because that's kind of the problem that we're aiming to solve with this. So in Port, you can now create kind of in-app surveys for your developers, right? No third-party tools are needed. So I'm gonna head back over to our portal and go to Self-Service Hub and just search for survey. There we go. So through the developer experience survey that is kind of custom to your developers, let's open this one up. So you can kind of ask them a lot of questions, right? Like what tasks take up the most time in your workflow? I'm just gonna speed through this here. You can ask them, what slows you down? I receive timely feedback during code reviews, right? All these different questions. So as a developer, I can respond to the survey, but then what's important is that someone can actually go and look at this because responses are captured directly within the portal itself. So as an example of that, let's head back over to catalog. Let's go to survey, just find survey, and we're going to look at the responses that came from that DevX survey that we just filled out. So here, platform leaders can review them and take action. Then maybe they can push out a feature within Port that addresses their developers' concerns, and then close that loop by notifying the targeted survey recipients, right? We send them that notification via self-service action, say that, hey, you spoke, we listened, and here's what we changed, and letting them know. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. If that seemed like a lot, I do want to just address how to begin or where you can begin, right? So the best use case for your most viable product kind of sits at the intersection of high value, high demand, and easy to implement, right? So high value is something that meaningfully actually improves your day-to-day workflow. And then high demand, right? Something that developers would actually use daily. So again, this is completely up to you, right? What is the challenge that your developers are running into on a day-to-day basis? And what is maybe a self-service action, for example, that they would really use every single day? And then finally, easy to implement. So something that's low effort to launch. It could be, it doesn't necessarily need to be scaffolding a new service, because that could be a lot of different steps for you guys to write a backend for. It could be something as simple as just creating a secret or maybe requesting an access to a cloud resource, right? So both things that are fairly easy to implement within Port. So actually, to help with this, we've built the Port Roadmap Planner. Let me just show you guys. And Gus, if you want to drop the link for this in the chat, that would also be great. But what you do here is define your user story. So what you're trying to accomplish essentially, and then choose a persona, kind of describe what your current state looks like, and then identify the opportunity. So we've got tons of real world ideas from customers and prospects who've had success building in Port. And this is just a really easy way for you all to get an idea of what to kind of start off with. Any questions about that or anything else? This kind of wraps up what I wanted to show you all today. So with the last 15 minutes we have left, I just wanted to open it up.
Looks like there's one more in the Q&A that says, is there a way to build something with Ocean and use it internally without publishing it to your repo?
Question.
When you say publishing it to your repo, do you mean like the Port repo? I think that's what you meant, as in not publishing it publicly. And yes, so I think just forking it, you'd be able to do that. So you could just use that internally. And then there was another question. Do you have any demonstrations of how Port interacts with Terraform or Pulumi for infrastructure as code deployments? We should in the demo. We've also got quite a lot of docs on that as well. So let me just share that as well. That in the chat. So for both Terraform and Pulumi, you've got good docs on those, how we can interact with those. And demonstrations. Let me check if we've got anything. I don't have anything on my own to hand, but I'll see if we've got something inside of the demo portal.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we do either, but while Gus checks for that, I mean, really the way we interact with them is just that whatever your, backend pipelines are written in, whether that is Terraform or not, the self-service hub that we showed is just the front end for that. So you can kind of connect those Terraform pipelines to the self-service action front end that we showed. So just if you actually find one specifically linked to Terraform, that would be good.
I think we've got, they're all quite open on the demo, but Antara's exactly right. Like we're just the front end with a single pane of glass, and the back end's up to you. So that the beauty of it is you don't have to reinvent the wheel, Stephen, when you start creating your when you start using Port, you don't have to rewrite all of your brilliant Terraform and Pulumi workflows that you've already used. You could just keep using them, but just use Port as the front end. So take that, you're kind of abstracting that complexity. So your developers don't have to learn Terraform and they don't have to learn Pulumi, but you've set up the guardrails for them. So when they click, they just fill in the details that you want them to fill in. And then and it's contextual as well. So it'll be, if you're running it on a service, it'll be contextual to the cloud resources that are related to that service. So yeah, Antara, that's exactly it. So you can see here, this is we're just the front end, but it's contextual and controlled by you.
Exactly. Yeah. So when a developer is coming in, all they're needing to do is filling out this form and hitting execute at the end, and whatever your backend is, you can select your invocation type, and you're controlling that entire pipeline.
There's a couple questions from Brandon. If you guys have seen those in the chat. If Port doesn't do something we want, what are ways we can add or alter the behaviors? And also, can we build our own UI pages or plugins to interact with either Port API or other APIs?
So the first one, if Port doesn't do something we want, what are the ways we can add and alter behaviors? So you can use iframes to add, different, basically whatever you like inside of an iframe. And you can always make a feature request, but hopefully most things we can cover for you, depending on what it is you want to achieve. So if you give some examples, Brandon, of the type of things you'd like to do, hopefully we can meet you there or find a way to do it. But we are a SaaS offering, so and very flexible. But ultimately we are a SaaS, so you wouldn't be able to sort of edit some of the page or something like that, but we can add iframes in there as well.
Yeah, and just something that is actually quite customizable is this homepage that I didn't spend too much time on during the demo, but you can entirely customize this if you wanted to put in, like Gus said, an iframe. You can put in like your logo here, put in whatever dashboards you would like, and make this completely your own. So it's not really changing the UI, but it is kind of, or building your own UI, but it is customizing it. And then also, as Gus said, if you want to submit a feature request, you can actually even do that publicly. I think there's a link for it somewhere. I'll try to find it right now, but since we are still in early stages, we're always super, super open to customer feedback, and we do take that very seriously. So yeah.
and interacting with the port APIs. So however you want that to, we do have very good port APIs, so you can do all sorts of things with the port API. So for example, you might say, and Tara talked about metrics, about scorecards. So if a service doesn't have all the scorecards completed and is not up to a standard that you expect, so we've got scorecards in here, low, medium, high, and elite for your DORA metrics. And if your DORA metrics are, or perhaps let's say our code quality, if you go to the one just to the right, if your code quality was below a certain standard, then you wouldn't be able to deploy, and that you could interact with the port API to do that. So there's all sorts of things you could do just to give an example of some ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example. And again, these are all just examples that we have in our demo environment. So whatever kind of organizational standards you currently use can be built into this, whether it's production readiness, observability, maturity, all those things can be put in here. And then you can take action based off of whether or not those scorecards are being met.
All right. I don't see any more questions. Thanks, everyone, for submitting those. If there are any more, I can put them on now. We have a few more minutes, but if not, just wanted to say thank you for spending time with us today. We hope you're leaving with a better picture of how to get started with Port and some ideas on how to make it work for your team. If there are any other topics you'd like to cover in a future session, let us know here in the chat or on the Port community. Please join the community if you haven't been on there. We want to make these as helpful and as relevant as possible. So really big thanks to Antara and Gus for hosting and sharing their insights today, and for everyone that joined. We will be posting this recording on YouTube, and then I'll put the link in the community so you can check it out there, share it. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. Hope you all have great weekends.
Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.